In the days following the assassination attempt, the Predator citadel shifted like a wounded beast. Guards doubled, corridors sealed, ancient banners replaced with war sigils. Yet Emma felt the truth gnawing beneath the surface. The attack had been too precise, too trained, too disciplined. Someone with authority had given those assassins access. Someone inside the royal hierarchy. While the clans whispered civil war, Emma watched the cubs closely. Hale practicing spear forms with Vexwrath, Sierra clambering across balconies with terrifying enthusiasm, and quiet little Myra, who sensed danger before anyone else. It was Myra who tugged Emma's sleeve one evening and whispered, "Mother, someone is watching us." Emma followed her gaze and saw nothing, but she trusted Myra's instincts more than any guard. That night, Emma set a trap. She placed the cubs in a guarded decoy room and hid with a silent blade above the rafters, muscles coiled in agony but resolve stronger than iron. Hours passed. Then, footsteps. Soft, controlled, expert. The door eased open. A tall predator entered, draped in ceremonial armor, face painted in old royal colors. Emma felt her blood run cold. High Counselor Varkesh, the elder who had pretended neutrality during the coup, the one who had publicly supported Emma's victory, the one who had insisted the cubs be trained under his guidance. He approached the empty beds, growling in frustration. "Where are they? My throne is rightfully mine." And there it was, his motive, his betrayal, his claim. Emma dropped behind him, blade pressed to his throat. "Looking for something, Counselor?" she whispered. Varkesh roared and swung his arm, knocking her across the room with bone-breaking force. Pain exploded in her ribs, but she rose anyway. He drew a hooked war spear as tall as she was and advanced. "Human, you meddle in the affairs of hunters far older than your kind. The royal line is extinct. The cubs belong to me." Emma spat blood. "No, they belong to me." The fight tore through the chamber. Emma rolling under strikes that split stone pillars, slashing at joints, turning debris into weapons. Varkesh was older, slower, but monstrously strong. Each blow threatened to end her, but Emma Groves was fighting for her children. And humans, when cornered, become something even predators fear. She smashed a lantern across his face, jabbed a blade into his forearm, shattered his knee with a chunk of stone. Varkesh bellowed and grabbed her throat, lifting her off the ground. Her vision dimmed until a tiny roar echoed behind him. Hale, Sierra, and Myra stood in the doorway. Hale charged first, stabbing Varkesh's ankle with his wooden practice spear. Sierra hurled a metal goblet at his skull. And Myra, quiet, gentle Myra, sank her tiny claws into his tail, the fiercest expression Emma had ever seen on a child. The distraction lasted 1 second, but 1 second was enough. Emma seized Varkesh's arm, twisted, and drove her blade straight through the soft gap beneath his jaw. The counselor fell, shaking the floor. Blood pooled across the stone. Emma collapsed beside him, breathing raggedly. Vexwrath arrived moments later, warriors behind him, eyes widening at the scene. "The traitor is dead," he growled. "The clans will know the truth." But Emma was staring at the cubs, Hale trembling, Sierra puffing bravely, and Myra wiping tears. They rushed into her arms. For a moment, the galaxy was silent. Then Vexwrath knelt, a gesture no predator had given a human in recorded history. "Guardian Emma,
You have slain the usurper, defeated our greatest warriors, and protected the royal line with fury we did not believe your kind possessed. The clans have voted." He lifted his head. "You will not only raise the cubs, you will rule until they are grown. You will be the regent of the predator clans." Emma's breath caught. She had come here as a diplomat, a negotiator, a visitor. Now she was about to become something impossible, an apex among apexes. She looked at the cubs, their small hands gripping hers. "If this is what it takes to keep them safe," she said softly, "then I'll be your regent." Outside drums thundered, clans gathered, legends began, because the galaxy would soon learn a terrifying truth. The predators had a new ruler, and she was human.
In my 7 years aboard the Coalition research cruiser Ardent Spiral, I had cataloged every known biology the galaxy offered, from vacuum breathers to plasma feeders, and I thought nothing could surprise me. Until the day we hauled in a ruptured escape pod drifting through the sulfur storms of Varnax 9, a world so toxic our drones corroded in minutes. And inside that broken capsule lay a lone human, a Terran soldier named Sergeant Liora Hale, unconscious, unarmored, somehow breathing air that liquefied lungs in every species I'd ever studied. Our scanners glitched twice before confirming her cells were actively rewriting themselves to neutralize poisons no creature should survive. And when Hale opened her eyes, she didn't ask where she was. She demanded to know if her squad lived, then forced herself upright despite injuries that would cripple most species, insisting she be allowed to search for survivors. She commandeered a failing shuttle, ignored gravity that bent steel, piloted into storm layers our instruments couldn't penetrate, and vanished for hours until her voice crackled through static, found them, before returning with 3 Terrans she had dragged across molten terrain while her own oxygen bled out. When officers questioned how she endured a world classified as triple red hazard, Hale only muttered, "Earth builds us stubborn," as if that explained everything. But when I finally accessed her species file, I realized it did. Humans evolved under crushing gravity, choking atmosphere, predators that hunted for sport, diseases that rewrote genomes, volcanic winters, oceanic megastorms, extinction events that came in waves. And instead of dying, they adapted, innovated, endured, turning suffering into muscle memory and catastrophe into instinct. After Varnax 9, Coalition Command realized a terrifying truth. Humanity wasn't exceptional because Hale survived a place that should kill anything. Humanity was exceptional because Hale was ordinary, the baseline product of a world that forged resilience the way other species forged bone. And as the crew stepped aside when she walked the corridors, not out of fear but reverent caution, I understood the chill coiling through my dorsal ridge. The galaxy thought it had met humanity's strongest, but Earth had only sent its explorers, not its warriors. What happened after Sergeant Liora Hale's impossible survival on Varnax 9 changed the entire strategic doctrine of the Coalition, but it was nothing compared to what came next. Because while scientists dissected the telemetry her broken shuttle had transmitted, while admirals argued whether humans were an unintentional existential weapons species, while xenobiologists rewrote entire textbooks trying to explain how a Terran infantrywoman had walked through triple red hazard conditions like a stubborn ghost refusing to die, something else was happening quietly in the background, something that would drag the galaxy into a crisis no one was prepared for. Liora, still recovering in medbay, still refusing sedation, still insisting her squad mates were fine enough, received a coded transmission from deep Coalition space, a signal she recognized instantly, the distress pulse of humanity's long-range recon fleet, a fleet the Coalition hadn't even known existed. And the message was horrifyingly short. Unknown biomechanical phenomenon. World collapse imminent. Require Terran response teams only.
The moment the message played, alarms erupted through the Arden spiral as scanners lit up with gravitational anomalies forming along the edges of the Varnax sector, the kind that usually meant black hole births, but these weren't collapsing into singularities. They were expanding like wounds in space, tearing open to reveal vast fleshy structures pulsing behind the veil of reality, structures that moved with predatory intent. The Coalition froze, paralyzed by terror, but Hale stood up from her medpod, ripped out the biomonitors, and marched straight to the command deck as if gravity itself feared to resist her, declaring in that low, controlled Terran tone that carried more weight than the Admiral's rank that the anomalies were not natural disasters but Leviathan breachers, universe-sized organisms that migrated between dimensions feeding on entire star systems, and that humanity, in its quiet, humble, unassuming way, had been preparing for their return for centuries because Earth had been attacked by a juvenile Leviathan in prehistoric times, nearly extinguishing early hominids and forcing humanity's genetic line to evolve instincts for fighting cosmic-scale predators. The command deck fell silent as Hale explained that humans hadn't become adaptable by accident. They had been forged as a response to a threat the galaxy didn't even have a word for, and now the Leviathans were back, feeling the gravitational scent of Varnax 9's toxic storms, drawn like sharks to blood. And if they reached a populated system, billions of lives would vanish in hours. The Admiral demanded to know how humanity expected to stop creatures larger than moons, and Hale simply replied, "We don't kill Leviathans, we hunt their anchors," revealing that the biomechanical structures emerging from the rifts were anchor tendrils the Leviathans used to stabilize themselves in a dimension, and if those could be severed, the creatures would collapse back into the void dimension they came from. But only humans had the neuroadaptive combat protocols needed to endure the psychic pressure generated by such entities, meaning the mission required human soldiers. Not just any soldiers, but Terran Void Runners, a class of warriors the Coalition had never even heard of. Then the ship shuddered violently as one of the rifts tore fully open and a tendril, the size of a capital ship, whipped through space, cracking a nearby moon into molten shards, and Hale, without waiting for permission, ordered all Terran weapons in the Coalition armory activated, revealing the humans had quietly installed entire weapon systems the Coalition never detected because Terran stealth tech was built to hide from predators that hunted across dimensions. Within minutes, the Arden Spiral, once a diplomatic vessel, became the spear of a Terran-led counterstrike, launching directly toward the expanding rifts, as Hale briefed the stunned, multi-species crew on what they would face, explaining that Leviathans tested not strength, but resolve, probing every mind with illusions that used fear as a cutting tool. And she warned them that humans were immune to these illusions, not because they were fearless, but because they had learned, through millennia of surviving a hostile world and facing cosmic threats long forgotten by others, that fear was just another obstacle to endure. As they approached the first tendril, the psychic assault hit like a tidal wave, making hardened predators collapse screaming. But Hale marched through it with calm fury, her voice steady as she ordered fire. And the Terran-designed gravitic scythes sliced through the biomechanical anchor, causing the first Leviathan to convulse, pulling back from the dimension like a wounded serpent. The crew watched in awe as Hale prepared to strike at the second anchor, knowing dozens more rifts were forming across the sector, each one a doorway to a nightmare organism older than civilization itself. But humanity had not only faced such horrors before, they had built their entire military doctrine around the certainty that the universe would eventually try again. And as the ardent spiral surged forward into a battlefield that defied every natural law, I finally understood the truth. The galaxy had always believed humans were remarkable because they survived hostile planets. But humans had not been preparing for planets, they had been preparing for monsters the size of suns. And now those monsters had returned. And the only thing standing between annihilation and survival was a single Terran soldier who refused on a fundamental level to let anything stronger than humanity exist without a fight.